Welcome everyone to today's video. We're the Dimitrov-Boulay piano duo. My name is Dimitri Dimitrov.
And my name is Elvire Boulay.
And in today's video, we're going to talk about having small hands and having to play big intervals or chords. And we're going to give you 2 tips that are going to help you solve those problems. Without further ado, let's get into the first tip. What was the first tip that we wanted to...
So you are going to show the first tip because that's one that, because even though Dimitar doesn't actually have small hands, I have very small hands. But even though Dimitar doesn't have small hands, there are some pieces, like I would especially think of music like Rachmaninoff, where even he has to also use some tricks.
Absolutely.
So he's going to start with the first tip, and actually the one that I think both of us use the most when handling big chords or intervals, which is breaking the chord.
I was thinking what kind of piece should I pick, and I thought the opening of the Rachmaninoff second piano concerto, which is so famous, many of you would know it, has chords that I have friends and I know a lot of people who actually can catch them, and I don't consider myself to have really small hands, but of course there are people with bigger hands and they can catch these chords. I can't catch some of the chords, so I have to break them, and so I'm going to show you now how. So this is the score, and I will play an octave higher, so because Elvire is very interrupting.
No, I'll move. This music is too beautiful. You have to play it here. I'll just move.
Yeah, okay. So if you look at the score, we have the first chord, and while for me that's possible, for some people that would be impossible already. But let's say I'm not going to imagine what's impossible for you. I'm going to show you what's impossible for me. Already the second, if you look at the left hand, I have F, C, D flat, and A flat. That for me, I can catch it, but you can. I also sometimes play different notes. For example, I would play also the G, because if you see, if I stretch, actually it's quite clean. But
it's pretty good. It is pretty good.
But it doesn't feel comfortable at all. So what I can do is I can break the chord instead of trying. Of course, feel free to try. If you don't succeed, just break the chord. Or, right, the right hand, I can catch it, so I don't have to do anything. So I have to solve my left hand problem, and that's that I cannot catch this chord. So what I'm going to do is this. I will take the bass, and then I will play the other 3 notes that are left. I will play them separately together with the right hand. In this case, that's what I'm going to do. Your other option would be by breaking. We mean one way to break is this, and the other way to break is this. Note by note, all 4 notes after each other. So that's what you can do when you have difficult chords. Then if I move to the next, that is also possible for me, but tough. I don't know if I'm not going to catch by accident a note that does not belong to the chord. So what I'm going to do is this. Then this one I can catch. Now I have a theory. Once I start breaking, I'd rather break every time because I don't want to interrupt the flow of music, but that's for another video because that's super interesting for me. But that would be the tip. I think that would be enough.
I think what is interesting is that Dimitar just showed you 2 different ways of breaking, and you'd probably be like, but how do I know when to do what? Well, that's just musical interpretation, and I think that, like, for me it's very clear you wouldn't choose to break them one at a time, because that has, in this case, because that has a bit more of a mellow feeling to it, and this piece is just supposed to be, yeah. So like musically you would take that decision based on what fits the piece, and if you doubt about that, just ask your teacher or ask somebody else's opinion, or listen and see if you can hear if any other pianist is playing this with a broken chord.
And so that would be our first tip. Make sure that you break the chords whenever impossible to play all at once. What's our second tip?
So I think the first tip is the most used, at least by me. I don't know by you for sure, because you generally don't have a problem. Just to illustrate, for example, my hands are so small I wouldn't be able to catch any chords in any bar of this piece.
The first one you would
no,
be
no,
able,
no,
the right hand.
no. The right hand, but the left hand not.
Yeah, okay.
So I would have to break all the chords here. And now I think the second thing that I use most often, because I do have small hands, so I have to improvise a lot when I play music, is actually leaving out a note. And that seems very logical, but let's take a look at actually what note you can leave out and what notes you can't leave out. I'm going to give you an example from the Fourth Prelude of Chopin, because I know a lot of students love to play this. I mean, it's such a beautiful piece. And a lot of my students at the very end can't catch one of the chords. So I thought I'll show you this example. Now the chord at the very end of this prelude, it's about this. Very beautiful. And it ends with a very large chord in the second to last bar. And that is this chord. As you see, I struggle with catching it. I can't catch it, and I probably would catch it because it's so slow, but there are a lot of students I know that can't. So what I would do here, because I don't think breaking here is in any way nice, because it's the very ending of the piece, it's pianissimo, it's such a piece that doesn't have a lot of energy in that sense, so I don't want to break the chord. I wouldn't choose musically to break it. I would actually just leave out one of the notes. And why? Because if you look at the notes, we have an E, an F sharp, a B, and one more E. You actually realize that one of the notes is doubled. So the E is doubled. Since you have a double E, I would say leave out one of the E's. Now it's also very important that you choose the right one, that you don't leave out the top E, because that's the melody. Because you have the very end, it ends with the melody. So if you leave out the top E, that's gonna sound very weird. You would have this and then it would make no sense.
What if you leave out the B?
I personally wouldn't do that because the B has a lot of meaning in the chord.
I agree.
And the E is doubled. So that's the reason that I'm very comfortable
But the B,
leaving
the reason
it out.
I'm asking is also for them to understand the B is doubled in the left hand.
That's a great question, actually. I think that you can easily answer this question.
You can hear the sound, actually, the difference in sound.
Yes.
You have this, omitting the B in the right hand and omitting the lower E.
Yes.
I like your idea much more, but I'm just shooting the question out there. Because
No, I like your question, and exactly that's the answer that I would give to my students. Just play both options and see that actually the sound is different, whatever note you leave out. Exactly.
Can you play them lower there to hear?
Yeah,
both?
of course. So here this is with the B, but without the double E. And here is with the double E, but without. I cannot play that because that's too large for me. You have to play that.
So one is, and the other. So I will do the combination with all the three chords at the end. And the other is, or.
Yeah, I really miss the B.
Yeah,
I really
me
miss
too,
the
me
B.
too.
And so I was saying about the melodies. So which E to leave out, because that is also important. So first look at the note that's doubled, because that's going to add the least value to your chord. Even if it's doubled in the left hand, because the left hand is further away, it's still going to add the least value to your chord when your note is doubled in the right hand. So if you're playing an octave, leave out the octave. But take a look carefully at where the melody is, so that you don't accidentally leave out the melody. So in this case, melody is very often in the top voice. So leave out the lower E, and then you get this, so that the melody stays intact.
Yeah, absolutely good tip. Yeah. So these were our 2 tips for today. There is a lot more to be talked about on this subject, like with any other subjects. The only thing that we'd like to add at the end of the video is don't be too shy to stretch your hands. Nothing bad is going to happen with your hands if you try to stretch and catch bigger chords. Of course, follow common sense. Once you have too much strain and you feel, let alone you feel pain, don't go and do that anymore. This is an indication that you're doing something wrong. So absolutely, it's fine to stretch your hand like anything else, with exercises, with getting tired while playing piano. I mean, physical exercises. When you have muscle pain, right? So It's very normal, as long as you don't go beyond something that's unreasonable and something that your body is telling you is not good for you, but you keep on doing it. So if you have big chords, stretch your hands, see how far you can get, and your hands will become more and more flexible. They're not going to become really bigger. Don't hope for that. That's not going to happen.
You just crushed my hope. I was still hoping.
Unless you are 10 years old, your hands are still going to grow up to a certain extent, up to a certain age, your hands are going to grow, but they can actually become more or less flexible depending on what you do and how you use your hands. This would be our last advice.
Yeah, and I think just to clarify, because I know people are curious about this, so stretching your hands, I would really only do it by, for example, trying in a slow tempo to catch your chord. Like I always try to catch the chords, even though I would probably not play them at the end like complete, right? If I have a very fast tempo, I'm not gonna struggle and find that chord, but while I'm practicing slowly, I would do that. I would personally not recommend any kind of like stretching exercises just like that. I would just really stretch them while you're playing, just slowly. And one more very important tip about this, because like I said, I do have a lot of experience having small hands. Don't try to catch the large chords when you're not warmed up. Don't do that first thing. So make sure that you're playing at least for like, let's say 10 minutes or so. Make sure that you don't do that just straight the first thing that you do with the piano, because that is easy to get injured.
Absolutely. Or what you can also do is follow Schumann's advice and just make a device that's going to make your hands bigger.
I'm gonna edit this out.
Of course not. This is a very useful tip. Just read what Schumann did. Please like the video if you enjoyed watching it. Subscribe to our channel if you want to help us grow the channel. Share it with other people. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We upload there regularly. Thank you so much for watching this video. We enjoyed recording it for you as always, and we'll see you next week again.